We all had to read those classic stories back in school, right? The ones we studied for exams. But what if they were more than just test material? What if they're actually a kind of playbook for being human, a guide to the whole messy, beautiful, complicated thing? So today, let's open that playbook up and see what it has to teach us.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like the setup to a really weird joke. A farmer, a bird, and a girl on a bus. But trust me on this. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you're going to see exactly how these characters are connected. Each one represents a really important chapter in our shared human story.
All right, let's dive into Chapter 1. This one's about one of the most basic human struggles there is, that internal tug-of-war between faith and fear. We're looking at two characters who are facing absolute disaster, where pretty much the only thing they have left is what's going on inside their own heads.
I mean, just look at the difference here. On one side, you've got Lincho the farmer. A hailstorm completely wipes out his crops. He's facing starvation. And what does he do? He writes a letter to God. Then you've got this young seagull who is literally frozen with fear, convinced his own wings won't work, even as his brothers and sisters are flying around him. They're both staring down a crisis of survival. But wow, their gut reactions could not be more different.
This right here, this is everything you need to know about Lencho. His faith is just so absolute, it's not even a question for him. The idea that God wouldn't answer his letter, it probably never even crossed his mind. And it's that pure, unshakable belief that pushes him to act when anyone else would have just given up.
Now, the seagull? Totally different story. He's not driven by some grand belief. Nope, he's driven by something much more primal. He's starving. The text actually says the sight of the food maddened him. It was that raw, desperate hunger for the fish he saw in his mother's beak that finally pushed him past his fear and off that ledge. It's a pretty amazing look at how basic instinct can just completely overpower terror.
And here's the kicker. Neither of them did it alone. This is so important. Lincho's incredible faith was met with the incredible kindness of a postmaster who just couldn't stand to see that faith shattered. And the seagull's crippling fear, it was met with some serious tough love. His family yelled at him, they ignored him, and then they dangled food just out of reach to tempt him. It just goes to show you how often our biggest internal battles get sorted out by the people and the world around us.
Okay, let's turn the page. Our next chapter takes us from these personal, internal struggles and scales things way, way up. Now we're talking about societal struggles, about the fight for freedom. This is a battle that's fought not just in one person's heart, but across an entire country.
To really get Nelson Mandela's journey, you have to understand what he was up against: apartheid. The text calls it an extraordinary human disaster, and that's not an exaggeration. This wasn't just a few unfair laws, it was a whole brutal system built from the ground up to dominate and dehumanize millions of people. Just let that sink in. This quote from Mandela's inauguration is just mind-blowing. The very same people who were labeled outlaws and criminals for fighting against injustice were now the leaders of a new, free nation, welcoming the entire world. It's a complete 180, a total reversal of power, and it's incredibly powerful. And what's so fascinating about Mandela is that his own definition of freedom completely changed over his life. As a kid, freedom was simple. It was running around in the fields. But as he got older, he saw that real freedom couldn't just be for him. It had to be for everyone. And this is the amazing part, he realized that to truly free his people, he also had to free the oppressors from the cage of their own hate.
All right, so we've looked at the big picture of national liberation. Now let's zoom way, way in. Let's talk about the small personal worlds that we build for ourselves, because sometimes the biggest, most incredible universes can be found in the most ordinary little places.
Think about Anne Frank. She was surrounded by her family in that annex, but she felt deeply, profoundly alone. So what did she do? She created a whole universe inside the pages of her diary, Kitty. She turned that tiny, cramped attic into this huge, boundless world of her thoughts, her fears, and her dreams.
And then you have Little Valley. She doesn't have any friends her age, so her big adventure starts right on her front doorstep. The bus that passes by her house every day becomes her entire world. She listens to people's conversations, she saves up every last coin, she plans her trip with military precision. It just goes to show you, right? You don't need a huge map to have a huge adventure. All you need is a powerful sense of curiosity.
And sometimes, an entire community's world can revolve around just one person. In Old Gaw, that person was the baker, the pater. He wasn't just some guy selling bread. No, he was way more than that. He was a friend, a guide. He was the thread that held the whole community together.
I mean, seriously, his role was central to everything. His furnace was needed for every single big occasion, from engagements to weddings to Christmas. His daily visits basically set the rhythm for the entire village. Even that funny detail in the text about his jackfruit-like physical appearance, that wasn't just a random description. It was a sign. It was proof that he was doing well, and that meant the whole village was doing well.
Okay, take a deep breath. We've just left the warmth of that Goan community, and our playbook is about to turn to its toughest chapter yet. We're going to talk about the one hard truth that connects every single one of us: loss.
So we meet this woman, Kisa Gautami, and she's just drowning in grief. Her only son has died, and she cannot accept it. She carries his small body through her village, going from person to person, begging them for some kind of medicine, some cure that will bring him back.
Someone finally tells her to go see the Buddha, and he gives her what sounds like a little bit of hope. He tells her, yes, he can help. All she has to do is a simple task. Go and bring him back a handful of mustard seeds. It seems so easy, so possible. But, of course, there's a catch.
And here's the catch. The mustard seeds have to come from a house that has never, ever known death. A home that has never lost a child, a parent, a partner, a friend. And with that one single condition, the simple task becomes completely impossible.
So she sets off, full of hope at first. She goes from door to door. But at every single house, she's told the same story again and again. The living are few, but the dead are many. She can't find a single home, not one, that hasn't been touched by loss.
You see, the Buddha didn't give her a task to find a cure. He gave her a task to find a revelation. By sending her on this impossible quest, he forced her to see for herself that her grief, as personal and as painful as it was not unique. It's the one thing we all share. And realizing that, truly accepting that loss is a part of life for everyone, that's the first step toward finding peace.
Phew. After a lesson that heavy, the playbook knows we need a little comic relief. So let's shift gears completely. But don't be fooled by the laughter. This next chapter has a really sharp point about how easily we let our own foolish pride get in the way of, well, everything.
So, welcome to the world of the proposal. The setup is simple. A man named Lomov shows up to propose marriage. This is a huge, life-changing moment. But does it happen? Nope. The whole thing goes completely off the rails almost immediately because of the most ridiculous arguments. First, about a tiny, worthless piece of land, and then, I'm not kidding, over whose dog is better.
And Natalia's poor father, Chubukov, just perfectly captures the absolute chaos with this line. You can just feel his pain, right? He's stuck right in the middle of it all, watching a perfectly good marriage proposal get completely destroyed by a shouting match about dogs. It is hilarious, and it is also painfully, painfully true to life.
So what's the final score? What has this human playbook actually taught us today? Well, we've seen that faith and fear are really just two sides of the same coin. We've learned that freedom is something you have to fight for, both out in the world and inside yourself. We've found whole universes hiding in a diary, on a bus, and inside a bakery. We saw that the path to wisdom often starts with accepting loss. And, yeah, we got a pretty good reminder that our own stubborn pride can wreck even our best laid plans. See, every one of these stories is like a mirror. It reflects our own fears, our own hopes, our own silly arguments, and our biggest truths. So the final question isn't really about these characters, it's about you. When you look at your own life, right now, today, which chapter from this playbook are you living through?